Hey everybody, Matt Barton here, your principal broker with this week's Broker Minute or Two. Hey, so it's great when the division of real estate actually provides me some content and actually kind of reaffirms some of the things that we've been talking about. So I wanted to go to article in the quarterly newsletter for Q4 that Laurel North, who's one of the investigators, put out. And I have, oops, I need to minimize my screen. There we go. This is her article. I cut and pasted it into a PDF so I could highlight it and underline it, and it kind of screwed up with the format a little bit here, but bear with me. So the title of the article is Who's on Title? And I like how she starts this out, talking about our experience as an agent. We're all excited about getting a deal, and because that starts a whole bunch of activity that hopefully ends in a closed transaction and some form of compensation, not some form of reprimand or litigation, right? And so in this list here, she talks about some of the things we should be considering when we're starting at the front end of a transaction. Have you verified the identity of your sellers? I've had this discussion with some agents, some brokers, and we have this crazy fiduciary of reasonable care, right? Reasonable care. Is it reasonable to have somebody produce some type of identification saying that they are actually the person who is in fact on title? I know we don't live in a day and age of fraud and crazy things aren't happening. I'm going to come back to that here in a minute. So, is it reasonable to ask for some form of identification? The answer is yes. Are they the owner of record? We can check that with a PR. We can check that on county records. Have you researched who's on title at county? They are technically who's showing as the legal owner at the time. And that again should be reaffirmed by a PR. Has the owner of record deceased? Now that seems pretty obvious to us that are practicing, real estate, but sometimes we have clients who don't know, and you have an agent on the other side who doesn't know. If somebody's died and they're showing as the legal owner, then other things have to happen, right? Somebody has to be appointed for that estate by a court. And quite often there's probate involved and everything else like that. So again, these are the things we should be considering when somebody signs. Because a lot of these things I'm talking about today have happened within the company, within our company, within the past 3 to 6 months, right? If somebody dies, it doesn't matter if they're the children and they say, oh, yeah, well, everybody understands and we're okay to sign the listing. No, they're not. Okay. Is one of my favorites. Y'all know this is coming. Is the property owned by an LLC or a corporation? And is the entity's name on the contract to reflect the recorded ownership? And are all parties in the business operating agreement? I'm going to scroll to the right here so you can see the rest of this sentence. Are all the parties in the business operating agreement signing the contract, or does one person have authority to bind the entity with only one signature? Again, it's not convenient, but it is under our fiduciary of reasonable care to make sure we have the right people signing, the authorized people to do that. How do you do that? Very simple. If they're signing for an LLC, and I get pushback from agents on this, right? It's kind of like, well, you mean I have to ask for their articles of incorporation? Well, you can either do that, which is reasonable care, right, to make sure that the person you have signing is not encumbering a property or doing something fraudulent, right? And then number 5 is a close cousin behind this. Are the names and the signatures on your contracts legally binding? That includes verbiage of if it's a trustee or if it's a personal representative or if it's a managing member of a trust. Okay. And then the last one is if it's your own personal property, you better be doing your disclosure of interest. It's not going to be adequate to say, well, everybody understood who was representing whom. You have an obligation to not only show who represented whom, but also to declare that you are a licensed real estate professional. So back to number 5, I wanted to jump to this. This is just a simple version. If you have an LLC, that item number 5, are you signing it the right way? If I was the managing partner of ABC LLC, it's not adequate to just have me sign as Matt Barton because ABC LLC is a legal entity, right? And you have to show that even though Matt Barton is the owner of that I am signing on behalf of that legal person, which is ABC LLC. Much like that on a trust, I need to declare who I am in relationships to the trust. I am the trustee of the ABC trust. So when our office managers reach out to you and say, hey, you're showing your buyer or your seller as either this LLC or the trust, and we just have somebody's name, Matt Barton, for instance. That is not adequate. And I hope you understand now why that is, right? This is coming from the Division of Real Estate. These are the ways we are to do this, and it is our fiduciary of reasonable care to do it this way. Okay, it goes on. You can read this in the fourth quarterly newsletter. It talks about if you don't do these things, if you're not paying attention to these things, you can run afoul of, some disciplinary action and the things that are prohibited as conduct of a licensee. Now, I want to get to the last one because it has some key points here. Oral tries to make some fun with this, so let's play a quick game of red flag. And so I'm just going to highlight the things that should be red flags to you when you're getting somebody to sign a document, a listing agreement, or a buyer broker. Typically, a listing agreement in these cases, right? If somebody asks you to list a property but refuses to verify their identity, that should be a red flag. In most instances, if you ask a seller, hey, our company policy and frankly, the Division of Real Estate who gives me a license requires that I verify identity. Do you have just a license, something I could look at to make sure I got the right people signing? Because there's fraud that goes on today. Most clients would appreciate that level of detail. They understand that you're an ethical person trying to protect their interests. Okay. The second one, if you pull information and they're not showing as the owner of record, that should be a red flag. If the property is in probate, somebody died, and the family is telling you, well, let's get a jump on it. Let's go ahead and list it so that when we finish probate, we're well underway. We could even have it under contract by that. Red flag. They are not authorized to sign a listing agreement because they've not been assigned by the court yet. So clearly they say here, you need to wait until a personal representative for the estate has been established by the court. The one we just talked about, an LLC with full authority to sign on behalf of the trust. This was a typo. I'm sure she meant to put LLC here. LLC with full authority to sign on behalf of the LLC. Can you set up a listing in your own personal name? No, you can't. This is just the issue of a real person who is also a legal person and an entity who's not a real person, but is a legal person, right? Whoever the legal owner is, that legal person, clearly they can't pick up a pen and sign. So you have to declare who is signing on behalf of them. That's why that longer signature. Okay. Quick other one at the division, we frequently hear, especially from licensees selling their own properties. Everyone knew who was representing whom and who owned the property, and everything was completely transparent. And I can just hear the division saying some version of this. Not good enough, don't care. You were specifically required to have it in writing and to have it disclosed in writing, not, oh, well, there was a handshake and a wink and everybody understood. So I hope this is helpful for you. I want you to be excited when you get a listing, but I also don't want you to be one of those small percentage of transactions who got so excited about the transaction, they turned a blind eye to reasonable care and actually exhibited unreasonable care, and then find themselves either sideways with the Division of Real Estate or litigation. So excited about what we're experiencing this year as things move forward. Hopefully you are too as well. And I wish you much success in the upcoming weeks.